Ombudsman for. All right, I'll start over again. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Paul Aronsohn. I'm New Jersey's Ombudsman for individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities and their families. Really glad that we could all come together for this really important conversation about cyber and phone safety. What we're going to do is we've got a panel of speakers today. I happen to be one of them. Just to I'm going to set the framework for this conversation, and then hand it over to my panelists, who I think there's a slide with their names and pictures. Maybe. All right, there we go. So we have Gabrielle, we have Jim, Erin, Ron. We're all going to address this topic from different perspectives, similar but different perspectives. And then we're going to open up for Q&A. And meanwhile, please, we encourage you to throw your questions or comments into the chat or question box, and hopefully we can have a really good, productive conversation. Again, from our perspective in our office, from working with so many folks throughout the community, individuals as well as families, this is a really timely and important conversation to have. It's not a new one. This isn't a topic that's new, cyber and phone safety, but it's probably increasingly important because the safety concerns, the challenges are more pervasive, more than ever before. And so there's a lot to talk about. And this is a conversation, frankly, that should involve everyone, people with disabilities as well as people without disabilities, because we all use the phones, we all use the internet, for whether it's talking and texting, whether it's trying to obtain information, have a question answered, look up a definition of something, explore a different region of the world. I mean, we use the internet for so many things. We rely on it increasingly. Shopping, a lot of people use it for shopping. More people probably shop online than they actually go to stores these days. If you're planning a trip, a lot of times you'll do it online. Dating, socializing. A lot of our engagement with the community is now through cyberspace. Some see that as a good thing, some see that as not a good thing, some see it as a mix, but it's a reality. And we do a lot of engagement with the outside world, with others, one-on-one, with groups of people through meetings like this. We're constantly engaging the internet. And again, that's true for folks with disabilities as well as without. But there are challenges. There are really real life challenges. There are financial challenges, being scammed. Sometimes we get those text messages, and you're supposed to, you're $5,000 is waiting for you, and you click it or something. It's coming at us on our emails. It's coming at us on our phones. It's, pop-ups that, or taking us to different sites. So there's real financial challenges we need to be aware of, personal security challenges. I mean, real life sort of, threats and challenges to our physical and emotional safety, cyberbullying. I mean, there's a lot that comes at us. And again, disability, no disability, it's true across the board. A lot of manipulation, a lot of attempts at exploitation. But while it's true for everyone, both the importance of the internet and our phones, and the challenges, more often, or increasingly, we find that it's a real challenge, and that these things hold true for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. On the one hand, there sometimes is a greater need for using the internet if you have an intellectual developmental disability, for accessing and engaging the outside world. We know a lot of folks, for instance, with intellectual developmental disabilities rely on transportation, and transportation is hard to come by. So physically, it's not always as easy to engage, to be in that outside world, whereas the internet allows you to do from your home. Similarly, a lot of folks depend on direct care staff, and with a shortage in the workforce, folks aren't able to get out into the community as much physically, and so they rely increasingly on the internet and emails and phones and text messages. But there's also a greater risk potentially for folks with intellectual developmental disabilities who, for whatever reason, due to the nature of their disability, aren't able to as easily perhaps navigate all of the challenges, navigate all of the information and the complexities that exist sort of in cyberspace. And so for, again, the topic of this conversation is, addressing those safety challenges, those cyber and phone safety challenges for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I'll tell you, in our office, usually this issue, it comes up either from a guardian or from an individual. From a guardian, it's usually concerns about, their loved one having maybe too much access to the internet. There's a fear that they're going to be taken advantage of, manipulated in some way. Individuals that come to us sometimes say that their guardians or their staff are not allowing them to have the access that is rightfully theirs to their phone, to their internet. None of this is easy. These are challenging scenarios, and it requires, I think, and I think some of our panelists are going to speak to this, ongoing conversations, not only when someone first gets the phone or first has access to an iPad or to the internet, but ongoing conversations and navigating it and being there. We talk about supported decision-making, guardianship or not guardianship. This is an opportunity for us to sort of help protect each other without unduly restricting people's access. Because the truth of the matter is, having access to a phone, having access to the internet is not like some privilege anymore. It's part of life, and it's a right. And with that right comes with responsibility, sure, but we need to protect people's rights to have access to this information, to be able to engage. Again, not an easy thing. We need to find ways to strike a balance, but it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Again, respecting the rights while at the same time sort of being very cognizant of the threats and the potential dangers and challenges. In terms of the situation, so most of the folks that come to our office, those are the contexts in which we sort of talk through these issues with them. Sometimes it requires sort of reaching out to a provider agency's human rights committee to sort of engage in a conversation. Sometimes it's just talking to the parent, or the sibling, about sort of finding that balance. But we're dealing with a current situation, which I think really speaks to this issue in a very compelling, difficult, disturbing way. And parents, gave me permission to sort of just speak to this issue. But we have a situation. We've been working with a family for, I don't know, it's well over a year now, I think. A teenage boy wanted a Facebook page. He has an intellectual developmental disability, wanted a Facebook page like every teenager does. And so his family got him the Facebook page. And within 30 days of having that Facebook page, an adult predator found him, groomed him, got him to commit a crime. And their engagement, I believe, was just within a span of 10 days of that 30 days. So really quick, young man goes on, has access to the internet, Facebook page. An adult predator finds him, grooms him, gets him to commit a crime. Now, the teenager was arrested, and for some reason I'm still not clear on, was prosecuted as an adult. This is a 15-year-old teenager. Was arrested and prosecuted despite the involvement of the FBI, another state's law enforcement agency, despite the involvement of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This happened despite the eventual arrest of the adult predator in another state. It happened despite the FBI designating this New Jersey teenager as a victim. Despite all this, the teenager was arrested, was prosecuted as an adult, and was compelled to plead guilty. Now, as you can imagine, this ordeal has and continues to be devastating for this young man and his family. Financially, emotionally, legally, this has just been a devastating, and it continues to be a devastating ordeal. I bring this up and I ask the family to share that because it shows you just in a span of, again, 30 days of being online, of having a Facebook page, this young man's life, I don't want to say, it's been devastated, and their family. Again, that's just one family situation, but I think, again, it speaks to, in a very compelling way, sort of the potential dangers that are out there. Again, it's incumbent upon all of us who work in this space. It's incumbent upon family members. It's incumbent upon caregivers and the individuals with disabilities themselves. We need to find that balance. We need to find our way forward. We need to have these kind of conversations. And And again, I'm grateful for the Family Sport Planning Council for organizing today's conversation. It needs to be, I know there have been prior conversations, and I know there needs to be continuous conversation going forward. And for this morning, to take this conversation forward, I'm gonna turn now to Erin Smithers, who is a colleague of ours at the Arc of New Jersey. She runs the Self-Advocacy program. She's going to speak to this issue from her perspective, and then we'll hear from some of the other experts. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. So yes, my name is Erin Smithers. I'm the director for the New Jersey Self-Advocacy Project with the Arc of New Jersey. I work directly with people with intellectual and or developmental disabilities to offer different types of trainings. We teach advocacy. We help in any sort of way that we can on a lot of different issues and topics. But this has always been a very important topic and it's highly requested. So we provide trainings to people with IDD throughout the state. And this training, I see in the Q&A box too questions about social media in regards to trying to get employment. We have trainings on that topic. While a lot of people understand that, like Paul said, it's a reality to be online, you can't really not be online, especially how a lot of people worked from home and we use Zoom now as, a common everyday feature. And our program moved virtual and it's more accessible for people with IDD to participate in activities and programs because transportation is a huge issue in New Jersey. Staff shortages are also an issue. So it's hard to avoid. It's almost basically impossible, especially for someone who can't be as independent as they would like to be within regards to transportation or socializing, networking. It's very easy, but we do find that there are a lot of issues that people with disabilities find when they start initiating conversations, they start initiating online dating, and they start just exploring the online world. So in response to that, we have created trainings that we provide all the time to groups around New Jersey, teaching about internet safety, online dating, online etiquette, healthy boundaries when it comes to interacting with people, whether it's online or in person. How to Part of our employment training is that everybody checks social media. So that's a really important part of trying to gain employment and keep employment. I know someone who was terminated because of things that they put on their social media. So it is really important. And I think that a lot of people don't realize the extent of their reach when they're online. So we talk about that as well. The amount of people that can see your posts and the fact that things that go online don't come off. People can screenshot. There's archival websites where you can see posts and websites from the past. Nothing really gets deleted. And so it's also really hard to understand the responsibility of being online. And so we try to aim our trainings to talk about that. And I'm going to talk more about our trainings later on in the presentation, but it's important to understand that it's exciting. It's exciting for people who have uh, interactions with the same group of people every day to then explore this whole brand new world, make friends in other countries, and it's very innocent. But it's very, very important as caregivers, as people who work with people with IDD, and as a person with IDD needs to understand there's so much responsibility that comes with that. I have unfortunately heard many, many stories from people who thought they were helping a friend come visit them and they gave them money, they bought them plane tickets, they gave them their credit card number so that they could, buy food because they were told that, the other person couldn't afford food. So personally, we as people without disabilities utilize the internet in any way that we want. And I believe that people with disabilities should have the same rights as people without disabilities. So I do think that being online and being immersed in that world is something that everybody should have the right to do. However, uh, it's very important to understand, like I said, those responsibilities that come with it. And it's very important, like Paul said, and I know Ron and Jim will talk later, to stay up to date with the ever rising scams and the plots that are, coming around to kind of take advantage of people. And unfortunately, the nature of our community is that people with disabilities are more so generally trusting of people, and they have very friendly outlooks on, they don't think people are out to hurt them. And I mean, I think that's the case for a lot of people with or without disabilities. So our program takes a very uh, big push forward to teach that responsibility, to teach the dangers, to teach, the importance of why you need to take these responsibilities seriously. And we all know social media and the internet can be a lot of fun, but it's important to make sure you're fully understanding the scope of what can happen and who you're reaching and what's out there. And I think that the next part of the presentation will be with Ron and Jim about certain ways that you can help to keep everybody safe and learn about different scams and different opportunities people are trying to take advantage of others. So I'm going to turn it over to Ron and Jim.
All right, thank you very much. Ron, good morning.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. Yeah, I guess I'm happy to help kind of kick things off here. So every day, we see an incredible amount of activity, and really encourage everybody to be vigilant. We will talk really briefly about some of the standard schemes that we see out there. And again, vigilance is something that's an overarching concept that we would ask you to consider. Most recently, in the US, there have been very large, also public breaches that have occurred. If you're familiar with National Public Data, better known as the aggregator for all background checks, in the past 60 days, we lost about 3 billion identities in what we call a full-on jailbreak, to the point where FBI InfraGard is even recommending there's an orange alert right now for some folks who may want to kind of lock their credit at times. Not trying to freak anybody out, but just basically saying this because vigilance is absolutely critical. So, human trafficking is on the rise, sextortion schemes are on the rise. So this hopefully will provide a little bit of a background or a backdrop for, how you might consider being vigilant going forward. So, Ron, I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything to that in the educational.
Yeah,
realm.
absolutely. So I would say towards the end of Jim's and my presentation, there are just a few informational links. There's a couple of trainings and it's about awareness, right? We're going to talk a lot about awareness. Jim's as he kicked this off. There's a lot going on, and it's overwhelming, right? It can be overwhelming at times, especially when you don't have that awareness, or you're just picking it up, right? You're just saying, "Hey, I know it's out there, but I have other things to focus on." But the purpose of today is to really bring this awareness to this group today, and have some takeaways where you can continue learning and keeping yourself aware, because as Jim said, it's changing on a daily basis. There's unfortunately there's some bad people out there, some bad actors as we call them, and we really need to be diligent and educated on the risks that are out there, right? And we're going to give everybody some takeaways to make you aware next time you get online, next time you're going to set a password, next time you're going to visit a site, next time you're going to click on a link, whether it's on your, in your iPhone or your computer. So I'm looking forward to this session, and please ask questions.
Okay, I think we're able to move on. Okay, let's talk a little about social engineering. I would guess that most people here have seen some level of phishing attempt at their email, whether you're, regardless of what your email, domain is, or through SMS means, through text, or other. So we'll talk a little about some of the standard concepts that people are using now for social engineering and understand, and this is something as part of that vigilance, the goal is to distract you and to basically misdirect you or to create an emotional situation that will get you to react. And this is not just the case in email contacts and compromises involving texts or other mediums, but a lot of areas in your world are touched by the internet more than you know. So we have a concept called IoT, which is the Internet of Things, which drives communication now to vehicles, to refrigerators, to your HVAC system. Basically everything, that is offline that gets, contacted for updates is basically part of the Internet of Things. So there's a lot of your world that's interconnected, and we'll kind of go through what that is. So let's talk about kind of the first parts of what these social engineering exploits look like. So you can certainly proceed if you would. Thank you. Okay. So first, smishing scams are definitely on the rise. So I'm sure probably everybody here, I know that Orange, Verizon, Bell Canada, T-Mobile, every major telco provider has been majorly breached in the past 2 to 3 years, some this year. You should always assume that, there's a possibility for really what I would call a bogus contact on a text message to your phone. We'll also talk about some of the calling features and how not to answer some of those because of what we call VRT units or different components that are used to capture voice imprints as well. The goal for, any APT group, we'll use that term, Advanced Persistent Threat Group, and that could be a syndicated group. It could be a bad person. It could be an entire country, that has what we call state actor coordinated attacks. There are basically criminals primarily who would respond to consumer side attacks, and their goal is to get you to respond. And that can be the case in SMS, that can be the case in Instagram, that can be the case in Facebook. There are nefarious users basically in every platform that you touch. So, Ron, I'm sure you've seen some of these as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we're probably on a few a month. We have students coming to us and saying, "Hey, I received this text." My rule of thumb is if there's ever a link asking you to click on it, don't ever click on a link within a text message unless you truly know who it came from, right? They're on the rise. These have been out there for the last few years and definitely getting worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of the problem with SMS also is in an email, we can filter it. We can kind of block it or stop what we call the executable. In an SMS text that's coming directly to your phone without proper security, that can basically execute something on your phone, um, or whatever SMS device tablet or iPad or whatever. So to Ron's point, one of the ongoing concepts that we'll talk about today is no. And for a lot of these scams, we speak to senior citizen groups and civic groups and nonprofit groups and folks kind of all over the country. And no has become a very standard concept for us. And you'll see why as we go forward. So, as you can see in this case, obviously unauthorized access to your account makes you emotionally want to respond. But that being said, there are other ways that you can verify account status. So you are not going to respond to this message, basically.
Yeah, so Jim, let me just tag on to that.
Yeah,
So for this example, and there's a million examples just like this, asking for account information, pick up the phone and call your provider. In this case, pick up the phone and call your dental office. Um, I know we're in the day and age of no one likes to call anymore. They like to just email and text. But for situations like this to verify, it's a quick 30-second phone call.
yeah, absolutely. Great point. We can move on to our next one. Social media scams are on the rise. I would mention there is a class action suit from almost every state in this country, especially against Instagram right now. And I'll go into a little bit why that is, and also Facebook and Meta generally. There were some questions about social with regard to job hunting. So LinkedIn is really kind of the largest social network worldwide. It does not have a very valuable payload, as we say, for somebody to try to take it over because I can't find your credit card information in there. I'm not going to be able to get social security number. So for job hunters, that's obviously a safe platform generally. But in social, you're getting um, not only just, attempts to kind of breach something or to get something from you from deep fakes, from artificial accounts, from, actors that are out there. They may be trying to sell you something. There have been a lot of schemes for crypto sellers contacting people, and that's not illegal. They're trying to just find ways to get together with people to talk about, maybe they might want to, purchase something or make an investment in something. There actually are legitimate actors that do this, but they use the same means that a bad actor, would by friending you, connecting you, following you, trying to figure out how they can get you to respond or react to whatever that issue might be. Um, this also leads to sextortion campaigns, which are on the rise. That is, and I'll use the term constituents. I know a lot of people are parents and guardians and other things, but um, as a cellular account holder, for example, to get the constituents to kind of respond to these sextortion campaigns, there might be a fake account like was being discussed at the beginning of this session, and they'll get somebody to try to take a picture or do something, and then the next thing you know, they're looking for a credit card payment of $500 not to release those photos onto your social media accounts. And those are very much on the rise. Unfortunately, there have been a lot of negative, associations with that from an outcomes perspective, with suicide rates and things like that. It's very important that this monitoring, and we'll talk more about the monitoring part as we go, but that this gets top billing in terms of your priorities in dealing with the communication devices and mediums that you are, maybe administering. So we can kind of go on to the next one. I'm sure everybody's probably seen social media folks coming aboard. Um, yeah. So Ron, have you seen any spam or phishing links come up in any searches you've done?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. These, I would also say, Jim, I know you've said it on the last couple slides, but these are also on the rise, right?
Yeah.
We get a number of phone calls to the help desk. It impacts the entire college, faculty, staff, and students. And I believe as we've educated and brought this to the awareness of our college community, people are now calling to check, which is exactly what we want. Call the help desk. We'll help you confirm. But yes, these are definitely on the rise, and We know how widely used Google search is, right? I'll just Google it.
Yeah,
And then, oh, well, it's true. It's on Google. It's true.
yeah. Yeah, regardless of your search engine favorite, whether it's, if you're on Microsoft Edge or your Google or your even DuckDuckGo or, some of the other what I would call tier B providers, um, these are possibilities because scammers and these advanced persistent threat groups also use SEO. So they'll buy capabilities for keyword searches, just like any of the rest of us can for our businesses, and do their best to get you to click on the link, during the search. So this is kind of another area. As Ron mentions, you'll see the brand, primarily that pops up, and you'll believe that it is actually associated with a genuine organization when it really isn't. You'll see a URL mismatch oftentimes. And one of the things we're going to urge you to do, or with your constituent, child, or family member, is to hover over with the arrow over the URL to verify that if you see something like this Venmo sign in, but the URL says it's a Yahoo account, that's, you know, not good. So that's part of the vigilant steps that we take every day to verify and trust everything that we touch. Um, it's funny because even top search results, as it says here, can be manipulated for fake sites. So a lot of times we think, oh, this is the genuine one or the first response or, but SEO can get any website well down a list now, even if it's the genuine site that you're looking for. So, okay, we can probably press on. All right. Ron, has your bank called you lately with one of these?
Last summer,
Yeah.
PNC Bank, but
All right.
it wasn't PNC Bank.
Yeah. Yeah. We call those command control servers, and C2s can basically spoof, now and use actual logos of businesses that are calling you that may make you think they are verifiable. So sometimes what you can do, as Ron stated earlier, is to call these folks back, because oftentimes, and it's rare that you'll see people invest in funds to do this. But if you do get a contact from your bank or from a government agent or anybody else, it's perfectly okay to say, look, I'm happy to call you back in 1 minute. And that way you can go verify the authentic number. And then you can go on and do what you need to do. One thing to remember as you're going through any government contact, banking contact, financial contact, these are some of the most emotional areas that any of us psychologically think about. So some of the things you might want to consider are really two things. If the government is desperate to get a hold of you, if the bank is desperate to get a hold of you, please know that they will actually send a certified letter to where you live, or someone will show up to your door. And that's kind of how the government works, right? Not necessarily that it's a bad thing. Sometimes they're just verifying things. I work with some, I guess, federal authorities and have had plenty of federal door knocks before just to verify some things. But the net is, if you don't believe the person you're talking to is verifiable, it's perfectly okay to call back and to refer to, your account information and to make sure that you are again being vigilant about whatever that contact is. These are on the rise now, as phones get more and more penetrated, really. So,
Yeah, Jim, just to add to that, again, I said it a few minutes ago. It's very easy to just take your bank card out, flip it over on the back, and dial the 800 number that's on the back,
yep,
right? And you're going to call the bank. You know that's the right number. It's on your card, right? And then you want to let the bank know, hey, I just received this call. They're requesting this information, and they'll tell you whether or not it's legitimate.
yep. And then they'll verify your address or last four of
Yeah.
social or whatever to create that circle of trust.
Yeah,
So,
they'll always ask for a few points of information to make sure
yep,
they're talking to the account holder.
right. So, yeah, we can probably press on to the next one. I think again, as was mentioned earlier, if there are questions along the way, we're definitely happy to discuss those. So let's talk a little about some of the summary judgment here of some of the points Ron was just making and what we've been talking about. Um, it's easy when we see a contact from somebody, and I work with some senior groups that said this is the part that always gets them, um, to let emotions cloud your judgment. The goal for misdirection is to make you panic. It's to make your constituent panic. It's to make them think they did something wrong or they need to fix something or somebody needs their help desperately. Um, Emotions, won't help in that case, even if it is genuinely an urgent matter that someone needs to deal with. So try to slow yourself down, put whatever that contact is back through your filter and say, okay, legitimately, how should I respond to this? As Ron said, you could call your provider, um, make sure you're talking to the correct person, which you just mentioned, check the address. As we talked about, check the email address and domain for spelling mistakes and for, basically authentic verification. Um, enable multi-factor authentication. I think, Ron, I'm sure you probably have this set for your constituents in the organization.
We
Probably.
do. We
Yeah.
do. We rolled it out a few years ago. And there was a little bit of pain because the old school thinking was, well, I got it, a secure password. Why are you making me now, use my phone or use an authentication application to get access to the data, right? Um, because right, multi-factor authentication is something you have, right? Everybody's got a little cell phone and something right? A password. And you need those two things, right? Because what we're finding, in the higher education world, along with healthcare, two of the most prone, arenas for attack because of that data, right? Years and years of data, personal data, are housed within higher education and hospitals, obviously. And how do we protect it, right? We constantly have to improve the protection on the data. It's the same thing from a personal aspect. How do I protect my financial information, my personal information? So, setting up multi-factor authentication on your financial accounts. Absolutely. If your bank or financial institution hasn't forced you to do it yet, you should do it. It's very easy to do. Very easy to do. And there's a number of those things that we're going to discuss and how you can protect yourselves.
Yep. Yeah. Ironically, even in the event that you use multi-factor, I recently did a kind of a presentation with a famous media source that you all know. We created a dummy account, and one of the people using a voice imprint was able to use the second factor of authentication to access her checking account in her app. So even in this case, I mean, this reduces the chance of something bad happening by about 85% statistically, as Ron was mentioning. But there are even, as you get more focused on security and policy, and again, being vigilant, you'll even look for the best ways to help you. There are communicator applications that you can download, that even password storage. Um, the communicators will send a verification code to verify that you are who you say you are when you're logging into an application. It takes an extra 3, 4, or 5 seconds sometimes, but it's worth every bit of that. So, um, I think another discussion point is really to look at the style of the message that you're receiving. There's no need to panic if you're hearing from somebody that you never hear from or that you've never had this type of discussion with before. Usually people will kind of ease you into a discussion if something requires urgent assistance. But it's surprising how many people will quickly react emotionally to something that, you know, they knew nothing about in the first place and came from someone they don't even know. So we ask you to kind of think through about that.
We had just recently, just a quick story. We recently had in the last month or so, one of our board members receive an email from our president asking him to make a payment. Never, he's not the financial, he's not the financial responsible board member. And it was just kind of like eye-opening. What forwarded it over to us and said, "Hey, this doesn't make sense." And it was indeed a phishing scheme.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't want to dime anybody out here, but Microsoft, Google, Gmail, everybody that has had, if you use one of the major providers, they have all been compromised. Just so everybody here knows. Yahoo, from the Verizon Passover, um, every single one of those has what we call an LDAP or a user directory. And those user directories have all been compromised. I've actually received one of those in my org before we changed providers from my CEO. Ironically, I couldn't understand why he would ever ask me for money because I'm hoping every couple of weeks he's more like paying me. Um, but at the end of the day, it's a great point. You will see these and always call or verify. So, okay, I think we can probably move along if that's okay. All right. Ron, do you have password policies in your organization?
We do strong passwords. Yes, and very important. So the college, about again, probably 3 years ago now, we were always changing passwords every 90 days and it required a strong password. Um, but a few years ago, we implemented a new password system to where they're longer and require multiple different characters, but you don't have to change it.
Yeah.
Okay. Which has worked out fantastic. But not everybody has those types of systems, right? So it's critically important to have complex passwords um, for your important system, your financial information, your health information, those things.
Yeah.
And I think Erin, I'm going to just do a call out to you. Um, did you say that you teach or you had a screenshot on how to, some ideas on how to create those complex passwords?
Yeah, I believe it's the next slide.
Ah, okay, cool. I thought it
There
was.
you
Yep.
go. So this is
Oh,
definitely something that we always include in our trainings. Just visuals I find help a lot. So it's kind of helpful to see that uh, a lot of the older passwords that I used were in the instantly section. So I always like to include this graphic.
Yeah. Yeah. If I can add to that, in the coming year, we have a new quantum encryption standard in the US and really around the world. If you're familiar with the technology, it does the algorithmic computation that we do today, only it does it 12,876 times faster. So the new quantum password crack, even for 40 to 60 characters, can occur in an hour or two now. So it's getting worse before it gets better,
mhm.
and it will continue to get more complicated over time. But this is a great graphic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like to also remind people that it's not a person at a computer like trying to crack your passcode. It's a computer program that runs 24/7. So they don't need to, that also helps put it in perspective that they don't need to sleep, they don't need to eat. It's just constantly trying.
yep, yep. Good point. Yeah, and again, that's going to be what takes weeks or months now will be done in minutes or hours now in coming forward. We've already seen one large state actor already using quantum capabilities out in the market. I don't think it's going to get to the consumer level for a while, but they are definitely doing it at the government and commerce level with our companies and things like that now. So, So it's never been more important to be vigilant again, right? All right, this is great. All right, again, do we have a question in the chat?
Yeah, just someone saying asking how they can protect their son or daughter. So I touch on that a little bit later on in the panel, and we'll also have lots of resources for everybody to take too.
Okay. Yeah, we have some more content on that individual device level also. So, all right, great. Okay, well, we can probably move ahead. Um, okay. So as Ron and I were talking about this earlier, and the whole team here was talking about this, there are some steps you can take as the account holder or constituent for your constituents. Um, the other thing you might want to do is to turn off, you know, capabilities based on which application you're using, or turn them on for GPS net, location services and things like that, which often makes sense especially if someone's out of the realm of where you know where they are or something like that. But you can set up family sharing on iPhone or mobile iPad. Steps are pretty simple. So you can co administer purchases, subscriptions, and a lot more. Apple makes this very accessible to you. This also gives you a second factor of authentication, like Ron was saying, that your bank would get to you and say, because they're always looking at fraud now, do you approve of this purchase, or because we use what we call user entity behavior analytics now. I can see if Ron is making purchases in where we live in New Jersey or in Pennsylvania on a constant basis. We develop patterns. If I suddenly see that there's a request to do a South Dakota purchase of 2 car tires or a computer or something else, we automatically flag that, and that goes right to second factor for approval. So, um, but you can also participate in that, and get those SMS updates to say, is your child, and in that case, they will say yes or no, Y or N, as opposed to, again, as Ram mentioned before, having a link. So, um, enabling screen time is another feature you can do. You can set phones to become inactive at certain times of the day or night. Um, I have done this with my own kids back when they were of that age to manage. They get kind of used to it over the course of time. It's a little bit contentious in the beginning discussion, but we were okay. And you can also use parental controls on iPhone, and this is the same in multiple platforms. So we'll talk about Android also, but you can restrict certain apps, content, and features. And the way that you can access these is go to settings, screen time, and content and privacy restrictions in the settings tab on your phone. So,
Jim, if I
yeah.
can just add, so
Sure,
we're
yeah.
talking about the device level here, but you can also uh, pretty easily control it at your Wi-Fi network in your house by connecting to the router, right? And there are detailed instructions. You can get them from your internet provider uh, on setting up not only parental controls, but also I highly recommend changing that router password because when they come out of the box, I think they still do this. They sometimes don't force you to change the default password. So that'll save you, it'll better secure you from people driving by and connecting to your router and getting in. Um, that's first and foremost. But secondary would be you can set those time restrictions, you can set parental controls at the router itself with the newer routers today. So, and that's just a quick call to your service provider, whether it's Verizon, Xfinity, there's a number of others out there.
Yeah, great point. Um, By the way, to your point about administering everything, you can jointly administer anything. So these phones, you can do that with uh, tablet devices, social media accounts. If you're not sure who you want people to connect with or friend, that's a level of participation that you can, really get involved with your constituent. You can also limit communication. There are ways to actually block other contacts. So we can dive deeper into that at another time if people are kind of interested in how to do some of these things. But yeah, there's the controls are there to do almost anything. On the next slide, we also will talk a little about, the same thing with Android or Google. There are resources to set up Google Family Link, and that allows you to create an account for your child and to manage their device. So again, you can set screen time limits, approve or block apps. Also understanding that, as we all know, Ron, I'm sure you've seen this. I know I have. Sometimes you look at an app store purchase and you're like, "Hey, that's not free."
Right.
So, so guys, think about, kind of what that, what those limits are. Which I've kind of said to my daughters, I can tell you. So, but again, you can enable, parental controls in settings. And they're also digital well-being, because part of what we're trying to do is also psychologically help the constituents feel better. There are some resources out there available, even free in the public domain. If you're on YouTube or Netflix, you can go see The Social Dilemma or The AI Dilemma. And it basically talks about how, social organizations, for example, get you to react. And they can certainly get our constituents, our kids, our folks under guardianship to react, really at a moment's notice. And these videos are really good because they come from the creators of the technology, people who, even out of guilt, left these companies because they realized the emotional effect they were having, basically on the users. So again, that's The Social Dilemma or The AI Dilemma. You can see now. That's free on Netflix. There's a number of resources on YouTube also that you can see. So you can set content restrictions here, and as we were talking about before, monitor location. Probably you may be doing that today. Use safe search and restrict content on Google Play. That's another setting, just a button, basically. Um, one vast playground for some folks with disabilities that I'm aware of is YouTube. YouTube has countless videos, unbelievable amount of information, lots of good information, lots of cool vids, lots of great stuff, but also a lot of bad stuff. And there are no ethical restrictions for people to join that, nor are there with TikTok. So, they will eventually try to kill something if it doesn't meet standards that could take weeks or months to even identify. So the net is, safe search is strongly recommended for these cases. Using third-party apps, there are some that work really well for really managing these devices. So Custodio or Bark offer additional features like monitoring texts, images, social media activity. They are, I think, I think there's a light subscription monthly for those. But, in some cases, well worth the procuring of those if you feel like you've got an issue to deal with. So usually collaboration and daily interaction is the best way. But, if you've already run into something and you have some questions and you want to do, excuse the expression, a little social surveillance, this is one way to do it. So, all right, I think we could probably move along. All right, Ron, have you done with your gang any parental control?
We did back
Yeah.
in the day. Yes, and it was, it was funny you said it. Yeah, it was a little bit of pain in the beginning. Um, but it was just, hey, if you want to use the device, this is what we're going to do. So we set screen time. I did it at the router though, just so it was just easier to manage rather than each device. Um, we set times that they could, access the internet. Um, uh, you know, Lock it down to, as much as we could from the sites that they could access. Um, and I know the software has gotten much better. My two children are older, so they're out of that mode. But yes, it was a great functionality for us as parents to have a little bit of peace of mind. Um, Knowing that we were trying as best we could to protect them, leveraging the software on the device.
Right. Okay, great. Okay, I think we get that's all great points. I've done the same thing. So we can probably move on to the next one. Okay, so we're ready for guardianship and supported decision making. Um, so I guess Gabrielle, without further ado, I think you might be on mute.
You are, Gab.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gabrielle Bohon. I'm an attorney with Falcon Law Group, and I'm going to talk about guardianship and supported decision making and basically where they fit into all of this. Guardianship and supported decision making, if you can imagine, it's kind of like on a spectrum with each guardianship and supported decision making at either end. There's variations in between the two that best suits your individual. Guardianship only applies to individuals over the age of 18 and up, adults, not children. To obtain a guardianship, you're required to file a petition with the county surrogate court with proof that the adult individual is incapacitated. Incapacity under the law means unable to perform certain functions like managing one's own property, finances, medical decisions, or self-care. The court appoints an attorney to represent that individual. That attorney is the eyes and ears of the court. Their role is to verify the information and make recommendations to the court. Then the judge holds a hearing and decides whether the individual has capacity based on the information presented. If the judge finds the individual does not have capacity, then they issue a judgment. And in that judgment, the standardized judgment form says the guardians shall ascertain and consider characteristics of the individual, which define their uniqueness, individuality, their likes, their dislikes, hopes, aspirations, and fears. Encourage the individual to express preferences, participate in decision-making, participate in the decision-making, highlighting that one.
Yeah.
Give appropriate deference to express wishes of the individual, promote the individual's right to privacy, dignity, self-determination, and respect. Make reasonable efforts to maximize opportunities in individual skills to enhance self-direction, and balance all of that with protecting the individual from injury, exploitation, undue influence, and abuse. So the guardian really has to weigh the person's own preferences and interests while balancing their role as protecting them from harm. When I talk to families, I say it's like taking your 18-plus-year-old adult child and making them 17 when you used to be able to make curfews and you used to have, or hopefully have, some influence over them on friends and what they do. But you have to remember they are an adult, and even under a guardianship, they do have the right to express themselves. So when it comes to internet activity, the guardian would have to determine whether the activity is being harmful to limit that access. They have to weigh the interests against the potential harm. If the individual lives in a residential setting, like a supported apartment or a group home, the guardian should talk to the provider about its cyber safety policies. What does the group home policy have? And most likely, they're going to ask the guardian to be the one to install the measures to block sites on the individual's computer rather than rely on the staff themselves. On the other end of things, you have supported decision-making, which basically we all are doing. When, for example, you go to the mechanic or you need work done on your car, you bring somebody who knows a little bit more about cars than you do. Or when you ask a friend about an opinion about an important decision that you have to make, and you ask their thoughts and ideas on it. That is all supported decision-making. Supported decision-making for our individuals can be demonstrated by an agreement between the individual and those people who that individual selects to be part of their support group, their support people. The agreement can include safeguards and protections, specified duties of the supporter, and can prohibit supporters from making decisions on behalf of the individual, meaning that the individual retains the decision powers in certain areas. Now, there are 15 states plus the District of Columbia that have laws recognizing supported decision-making. New Jersey is not one of them. But a New Jersey resident could use two other instruments. One is called a power of attorney, and the other is a healthcare directive. They are legal documents and they are recognized throughout the state. With a power of attorney, the individual designates someone as their attorney in fact and grants them permission to manage their financial matters. The individual retains access and authority over their own bank accounts, their own finances, but they can designate somebody else to step in for them. With healthcare directive, the individual designates someone to make healthcare decisions on their behalf if they become incapacitated, unconscious, or unable to speak for themselves. It can also include end-of-life decision-making. These are documents that all adults should have. Both documents define the scope and the authority being granted. They both are revocable, meaning the individual who writes them can take back that power at any time and grant it to somebody else. This is a little bit of a hole, because if we have somebody who is trusting and believes that this other individual has their best interests in mind, they might revoke the power of attorney with one person and give it to somebody else, which would be dangerous if the person that they're granting it to is a bad actor. So basically, under both guardianship and support decision making, individuals retain the rights to express their own preferences, likes, and dislikes. With the guardianship, the guardian has legal authority and the duty to protect the individual from harm. With supported decision-making, the individual would be the one to initiate those steps for their supporter's assistance. With a power of attorney, the supporter could step forward and have the legal authority to talk to a credit card company or a bank about financial transactions. Supporters and guardians can file complaints if they believe that their loved one was a victim of scam. But again, you would need the individual's cooperation in that as well. So the place to start with both options, with anything, is discussing the cyber safety with individuals, talking about good behavior on the computer, discussing all the things that were talked about before. Talk about boundaries and precautions and safety with your loved ones, and then go and monitor it. But remember, we have to allow our loved ones to express their own interests. They are adults, regardless of whether they're under a guardianship or not. We have to consider what their interests are and then weigh that interest and talk to them about their actions and how to remain safe within the community. Then Erin's going to explain a little bit more about the rights and responsibilities. Erin?
So we can, there you go, perfect. So, yeah, so everybody has rights and responsibilities when it comes to anything. We often, when I work with people with disabilities, they don't realize that they have certain rights, because they're, they're told what to wear. The majority are told what they're eating. They're told what they're going to do that day. So when we talk about advocacy, we start small. A lot of people think advocacy is getting involved in governmental affairs and advocating for legislative change, but actually advocacy starts small with expressing your wants and your needs and your goals and your desires. What do you want to wear? Who do you want to talk to that day? What do you want to do? What activity would you like to do? So a lot of this comes back to why we feel we have to protect people with disabilities more than people without. People with disabilities have that right to enjoy relationships and sexuality. They are adults without being abused or exploited. People with disabilities have the right to develop friendships, emotional and sexual relationships. They have the right to make their own choices, and being involved in decisions that are made about them and their life, including dating, living with a partner, and getting married. I talked earlier about how sometimes people with disabilities that I have met have more of a everybody's a friend view, because a lot of people with disabilities don't have the dignity of risk. Their everyday actions are completely monitored, and they are not able to fail at things or take actions where they could fail or they could get hurt, or they could, make a mistake. And that's how a lot of people learn. That's how we've learned to keep ourselves safe. So, it's important to remember also that a lot of times people with disabilities, when they express what they want and what they need, they're told that they're acting out, they're being disobedient, they have a behavior, and then they get in trouble. They get, put on a special treatment plan, or sometimes I've seen people, have it affect their medication when they start talking about how they want to do something different than what they're being told. So this all relates to why it's so important to teach people about their rights, but also about their responsibilities. Everybody that I have talked to wants to live a more independent life, and that all stems from just being able to be involved in decisions that are being made about your life. So when we offer these trainings to people with IDD, we very much highlight the responsibility portion. Responsibilities take knowledge and work. People have to be taught how to stay safe, especially if they're not taking those risks where they might not be safe, where they might not make a mistake. They have to be told to trust their gut. They have to be taught how to stand up for themselves and learn about different risk factors. Like I said, it can be hard when someone has had someone else kind of make choices and decisions for them their whole life. Sometimes it takes a little bit of unlearning in that department to help people with disabilities see that not everybody is out there to help them. They've had that their whole life. People just trying to help, people trying to keep them safe. And so that has to be taught. So some of the things that go on in our trainings are, how to stay up to date on scams, because as Jim and Ron have said, it's always changing. It is constantly changing. So I know Ron and Jim talked a few ways about that already. Also, how to express to other people when something doesn't feel right. We talk about not giving out any kind of information to the public, personal or financial information ever. And we emphasize that there is, you have your in real life friends and you have your social media or online friends. Would it be weird if an in real life friend asked you for your social security number? Has a friend in real life ever asked you for your bank account information? So if like a friend in real life wouldn't do that, then a friend online shouldn't be doing that either. Um, Passwords are safe. Nobody ever needs to know your passwords. We don't give out any information about our passwords, our PINs. We do not give out our address. We don't give out a family's information, or we don't send people money or gifts, just issuing reminders. We try to keep everybody protected online by teaching that you should talk to someone for a while online before you meet them in person. You do not have to buy something for someone in order for them to like you. So I know that is a big draw for everybody. You want to be liked, you want to have friends, and sometimes you feel that need to give them something so that they'll be your friend. But you don't have to do that. And that's not the quality of friendship that you should want in your life. You need to trust your gut feeling when something seems suspicious. If you're not sure how to trust your gut or what that feels like, talking to someone that you trust about a situation, all part of supported decision making, get their opinion, get their thoughts, and then they'll help you work through that situation or whatever you're going through. And then also don't be afraid to use the block buttons. Don't be afraid to report things. You don't want someone else to have to go through, the same thing that you're going through. So again, it's all a part of how sometimes people with disabilities are afraid to say no. They're afraid to, speak their mind. But it's completely okay. And you're not being rude if you block someone who's making you feel uncomfortable. Like has been mentioned before, chatting inside a website or an app, if you're meeting someone on, an online dating app, don't ever click any links that are sent to you. Don't go to chat on another app. Stay within where you met that person until you're ready to, meet in person or things like that. Do some background checking, be a detective, Google their name, check their Facebook, check their social media. There are even, places that you can ask them to do an internet search and find out background information if they have a criminal history, things like that. If you decide to meet too, we have whole trainings based on that. What's the safest way to meet someone, not alone? Don't let them pick you up from your house. Tell someone everything about this person that you're meeting, their handle, their screen name, where you're meeting, what time you're going, what you're going to be doing, things like that. And don't be afraid to, maybe if you want to have company that first time, it doesn't have to be a one-on-one meeting. You can meet with family or friends so that you're both feeling comfortable. We also have a lot of trainings on consent and boundaries. We talk about what that is, what consent is, what boundaries are. We talk about how if you post a picture of you and your friend online, did you get consent? Because a lot of people don't want to be posted online. The friend you're taking a picture with might not want to be posted online. They might not want to have their image out there or the location they're at out there. We again talk about boundaries and what that means in a social situation and what that means in a physical situation. We talk about red flags and how to notice red flags and how to identify them. Like I said, if someone's doing something online that like an in-person friend wouldn't do, that's definitely a red flag. And if you feel uncomfortable for any reason, trust that feeling. Go with that. If someone makes you feel bad because you don't want to do something and they want you to do it, huge red flag. someone trying to issue controlling behavior by texting over and over again, or calling you over and over again, or messaging you over and over again, how that's controlling, and how they're trying to elicit a response when you're unable or when you're not ready. That's a red flag. Someone trying to get sexual with you right from the start without getting to know you, again, a red flag. They won't answer any of your questions, but they have a lot of questions about you. They ask for pictures a lot. They ask for naked pictures, right? You have to kind of be specific about certain situations. And if they don't want to meet on a camera, or if they don't want to meet in person after you've talked to them for a while, that can also be a red flag that they're not who they say they are. And also, in this day and age, like I said, everybody's online. Everybody has a social media account. It's very rare to find someone who doesn't. And if that person you're talking to only has one profile picture, or has one friend or no friends, that is also a huge red flag that that profile was just made, and that that person is not who they say they are. So we also go into a lot of how to spot a fake profile, and how to spot if you're talking to a bot, or a computer program, or someone who's not real, AI, because that is unfortunately very common. So we talk a lot about how to tell if photos look edited, how to check recent activity, how to go into their About Me section online. How long have they had this profile for? Was it just created yesterday? Or have they had it for 5 years and they still have no friends? All of those are red flags to look out for. And lastly, in all of our trainings to people with disabilities, we emphasize that responsibility to let trusted people know what you are doing, where you are going, to report those crimes, to report scams and fake profiles to either that person that you trust or to authorities. Reporting scams and cyberbullying is a must. We want to help other people to prevent them from getting scammed themselves. And it's also important to talk to others when you have an unsure feeling, when you start to feel like something's a little uncomfortable, but you can't really describe what it is. You just have that feeling. This is all, again, a part of supported decision making that can be utilized for people with or without guardianships. Keeping people involved in their own life decisions really does go a long way to help people feel more confident in their choices, more knowledgeable about what they're going through, which in turn then helps them be more responsible for themselves and helps them to stay safe and make safe choices. So I know that a lot of times we want to kind of cocoon the person that we love and keep them safe and protected, but we have to balance that out with letting them still live life and enjoy the things that life has to offer. So I think a lot of great things were discussed today on how to let someone be involved in social media and online activity while still monitoring them, or kind of limiting some things when needed, because we don't ever want to make someone not be able to experience the joys and the highs, because we're scared about, the lows or the bad things that can happen. And there are ways to just keep everybody safe while also letting them live life, because I think that's, really, really important. And I have coming up on the resource page, we have some of those trainings online, and we have some of webinars that talk about consent and boundaries and online dating safety and online safety and cyberbullying and harassment. We have webinars about that are recorded and you can go and watch. We've been doing our webinars for almost 5 years now. So we have a lot of different material on there that is available for anybody to watch at any time. And with that, I will turn it over to, I think, Gabby, is this your slide? I'm not sure whose slide.
No, not sure whose slide.
I can jump in here because this slide actually goes to a question that we've had. So maybe if I just put the question out there, we can talk about what's on this slide. So Sandy asked, and I'm going to jump in on this as well because this is personal to me as well. When your child is an adult who is differently abled, you can change their birth year to use the parental control features. So I'm going to add to that a little bit. I think that's really an important point. My son cognitively is not able to independently use the iPad that he has at his group home without some supervision. I wanted also not only to keep him safe, but I also wanted to make sure the iPad didn't get into others' hands because it was connected to my account. And I had to then go in and make a 39-year-old 5 to have that parental control. So I'm just wondering if there are any comments or information that can be shared in those kinds of situations.
There's lots of different ways that you can work with someone so that they can utilize the internet in a way that is good for them, whether it's, doing it with them, asking them, where do you want to go? And then typing that in the page, or if they're using a communication device, just trying to find out what they're interested in and then, setting that up for them and doing it along with them. And then that's also a great way to kind of monitor what's going on and talk about, like, if they're like, well, I want to go to this site, but you know that that's not a safe site, you can explain, well, this site is not safe. This is why it's not safe. And this is what we can do as an alternative. I don't know if anybody wants to talk specifically about.
Yeah, I have some thoughts about alternatives in a browser. You can definitely create favorites. So if your constituent has some favorite sites, we can certainly create those favorites up in the browser and then make that easy for them to access without typing in erroneous or nefarious URLs or anything like that. So.
Okay, that's great. That's really helpful. We can start, I think, going through some of the other questions that have come up. There are a number of good ones. I am going to also read some that have been answered in the answered section, but just so that everybody can see them. So let's start with Donna wrote, thank you. I would like to mention that individuals on the spectrum or anyone looking for employment need to understand that they should avoid putting their political opinions on social media to avoid stereotypes either way and for personal security. That's a very good point. They need to understand that you cannot trust everyone online, but especially those with developmental disabilities. Also, it's not healthy for individuals on the spectrum to rely on online as their only means of socialization. So I just wanted to share that.
I can actually, I don't think it's healthy for anyone to rely solely on online. It's important
Absolutely.
to have in-person contacts, but also we have to remember that for people with disabilities who have a lack of transportation and a lack of access to outside, sometimes that is what they have the majority of. So I think it's important to just express why it's not great to put your political views or to put personal information online, and just help them understand that if you're trying to get a job and you're expressing, a specific view that you have and it goes against the person who you're trying to work for, that could look bad for you. So you want to kind of put your best face forward out there. And we do actually have trainings on that as well about trying to get a job and how social media and the internet play with that.
Yeah. I can add it is part of our background check process.
Okay. This was answered, but I'm just going to highlight it. Chris wrote, do you recommend or suggest monitoring software for desktop and iPhone that will flag website specific words people engage with texting? And Ron did answer that, yes. And you did talk about that in your presentation. And I think those are listed in the handouts, if I'm correct. Do you want to comment more on that, or?
Yeah, that is correct, and it is listed in the handout that you did provide in the chat.
Okay,
so
great.
The tools that we referred to are in there.
And just to highlight, several of you asked if you would get the handouts. They are in the chat. If you have any trouble downloading them, just reach out to one of us and we'll be happy to help you with that. Shoshana wrote, are password apps safe? I fear that they have the potential to be like a Rosetta Stone. If that gets hacked, someone has access to everything. Ron, you answered Bitwarden as an excellent and safe app for managing passwords, and NordPass is another good tool to review.
Yeah, Jim, I didn't know. I have some experience with Bitwarden and NordPass.
Yeah.
Didn't know if you knew anything, had any other ideas.
No, those are good ones. Anything that's going to have 256, well, excuse the technical part of this, but that level of encryption, even in the standard password vaults, aren't bad.
Hmm.
They're better than reusing your password.
Yeah.
And in all of these cases, when you go to reset your password, because we don't want anybody using the same passwords for multiple items. That is how we break things. Um, but yeah, it auto generates a strong password every time in most of those tools, and any one you use is better than what you probably aren't using today. So, but yeah, Bitwarden's a great one. Those are cloud-based, so it's as a service to you. So yeah, they're good. We did see one get compromised in the last year or two, but that was more of a corporate level tool than standard consumer level, what we call desktop vault. So
Thank you. I think I have some work to do after this.
Yeah.
I think we all do, Kathy.
um, uh, Ron shared an experience he had, and I actually have had a similar experience. He had somebody call claiming that there was suspicious activity on his bank account. They asked for information to verify the account. They asked for his name, his phone number, address, and asked for the answer. And it was a lesson learned for sure. So I think all of us need to know that. I actually recently got a call saying that my American Express account had been compromised. I hung up on them and called American Express, and sure enough, it was not American Express. And it's a pain because they had to send a new card, and everywhere I
yeah,
had it, yeah. But at least
yeah, their banks will at times send you a new ATM card, and that's for a good reason. Let's just say that it's not because it's the pretty new colors.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Dolores wrote, I thought there should be, and she has it in quotes, a tender platform or app for the IDD community that allows for social interaction, low risk, and protection. This community is longing for an online dating app or, just that definite community connection. Erin responded, there are a lot of dating sites and online forums that are made just for people with IDD and also for physical disabilities. So we could probably get some of those up on and share some of those sites moving forward. Donna wrote, what are the places to check individual or group names to check to see if they're safe? Erin responded that you had a family actually go to their local police station to have a background check on someone who was bothering them. So I don't think there's any way online to put in a URL and check if it's a real or fake or it's safe or it's not safe. Would that be correct?
So what I usually do is I'll type in because like Paul said, I do a lot of online shopping and some of the sites look a little suspicious. So I will type in that company name and then add scam or type in like a link and type scam and see what pops up. If there's like a bunch of websites that say, I purchased, never got my product, or, I was scammed by this company. I just look to see kind of how many results there are that say that. I don't typically click in there. As far as also doing background checks, you can pay to have a subscription to do your own background checks. There are different companies and things where you can pay for a subscription and do that yourself. I just know this one family was having an issue with one specific person and they did go to the police. But I know Jim and Ron probably have a lot more.
Yeah, to your point, there are lots. I'm not sure if Ron's org uses any, but there's ones like Been. I know I'm not marketing for anybody, but Been Verified, and there's a number of other ones for a light monthly fee. Probably, I don't know what the cost is right now of some of them. We have corporate grade ones, but they will tell you about any criminal history, any court litigation, any to whatever degree that information is out there. Um, so yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure of what I point to our HR department, human resources department, and at one point it was outsourced and then they brought it in-house, and I'm not sure where it's at, if they're still doing it in-house. But the college, obviously does do some of that stuff on during the interviewing process for new hires.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Daiquiri makes a good point where sometimes, at least for her son, he gets web fatigue, Zoom fatigue, and he needs some human interaction and connection from any, to make that face-to-face connection. Erin responded that the Alliance Center for Independence has a number of support groups and programming for in-person. I'd also say the independent living centers are another good place to reach out for some in-person contact. And our program is slowly having events back in person. But the virtual programming will always remain a big part of what happens. Let me go back now to our questions. I'm going to skip around a little bit. Just again, from Daiquiri, I couldn't be prouder of the panelists today. I truly hope we repeat and revisit this exact or similar webinars. Her son needs repetition, rituals, and consistency in order for some of this today to be retained. Please, please, please circle around and repeat this webinar. I will make sure her support coordination agency and everyone in the wake of her child will attend next time. It is really important. These kinds of things need to be gone over and over again. This has been recorded and can be found following today on the NJCDD YouTube channel. Am I correct, Carrie and Kyoko, in giving that information?
That's correct. And I will send a link to everyone too.
Okay, great. And just as a commercial, that YouTube channel has a lot of great recorded webinars. So, definitely kind of take a look at it, and you will find other topics that I'm sure you will find of interest.
And I see there's a lot of questions about dating people with IDD. I think word of mouth is the best way. I know there's a lot of hesitation about which sites are safe and who's using these different sites. Maybe just ask around, see what sites other people are using, what sites people have had good experiences with. In my research, I know that some of the typical bigger online dating sites are kind of biased towards people without disabilities. So I know people with disabilities have not had great experiences on like Tinder and Hinge and things like that. But there are sites out there specifically for people with IDD or physical disability. Dateability came up as one. I don't use it myself, but I know 2 or 3 people who have used it. Also, I just like to say that like organically talking to people and on like social media can be a good way to just kind of get to know people first. That's always really important when meeting online, is to form like a base friendship first and then see if, anything can come from that. And there are a lot of, like I put an ACI in there. They do hold things like dances and dating meetups and things like that. So you can actually meet people in person with support staff around, so it is in a safe environment. You just kind of have to do some research, do some searches with the programs that you're involved with, ask if they know of anything. Search online and kind of look at reviews and things like that. And Jim, did you want to say something also?
No, I was just wondering if there was a differently abled meetup group or set of those in Meetup itself that, you know,
Oh yeah, Meetup is a great site where you
yeah.
can meet people. Maybe I know that last year there was kind of, I guess, with Dating on the Spectrum on Netflix, it sparked all of these meetup groups for people with autism to meet together and go on speed dating events and things like that. So you just kind of have to search around, check your library for posters in their, bulletin board, coffee shops too, things like that. Just wherever you're out, just kind of look and see if events like that are being held. Unfortunately, New Jersey's doesn't have a great place where all of the programs kind of talk to each other and you can kind of just go to one place to see what everybody's doing. You kind of just have to go around and search on your own. But word of mouth, I find, is the best. If you know someone who's had a great experience at a location or with a website or a dating app, I find that can be trusted more than, Google reviews or things like that online.
Okay. I think for me, I think one of the best sources of information to find things has always been other parents and other family members. So I don't think you can ever underestimate that. Dolores asks, and Gabrielle, maybe you can help with this one. The support coordinating agency will not allow power of attorney to be used as a legal tool for any type of business. I have long advocated for the documents to be accepted by the agency. How can I get my agency to understand that power of attorney for individuals to be considered as a legal document, since many families cannot afford to file for guardianship?
Okay, so to be clear, let's start with what a power of attorney is. It reviews financial information, okay? Banking, property transactions, stock transactions, corporate finances, all right? So my understanding is that a power of attorney could be uploaded into iRecords, which is the database that the Division of Developmental Disabilities uses for all the information to create the individual service plans, ISPs or NJISPs, whatever initials acronym that your agency uses. So that information can be uploaded. Now, whether or not a person who has a power of attorney is the attorney, they're called attorney in fact, or agent, can sign the ISP for the individual. I do know that an individual themselves can sign it, and a guardian can sign it on that behalf, if they are a guardian of the person's property and estates. Again, financial. There's two components to a guardianship. There's person, meaning their well-being, medical decisions, social decisions. And then the other half is property, meaning, again, their finances. So going back to your agency, power of attorneys, I believe, can be uploaded into the iRecords. And if the person has the authority to sign financial documents, they should be able to file the ISP, as long as that financial document says that they have authority to sign different things. And I know it's a very long standardized document to do. So you just have to talk to your support coordination agency and see how it could fit into the system that they have there.
Okay, thanks, Gabrielle. Donna kind of has three that are kind of all together. The laws need to change about not just age, but an intellectual developmental disability option. I think that has to do with parental or family controls. For parental controls, give the guardian an option to protect, not just based on age, but based on intellectual age. Yeah, that's an interesting, and again, I have a son with very, very complex needs, who cognitively is very challenged, and it applies for this. I tried to get a bank card for him that had the same controls as a kid would have, and that was not an option. So I think there's not a lot of understanding of the needs of some individuals. here. Does anybody else want to comment on that?
Kathy, I was just going to comment is that guardianship, as I said, is basically setting somebody back to the age of 17, where the guardian gets to make the decisions, but they have to incorporate what that individual's preferences are, and balance that about keeping them safe and protecting them from the harm and abuse and exploitation. So they still have that role as a parent. Now, you just have to balance the two of those things, because we all know teenagers have their own idea. You do not have to get a guardianship at 18. I just want to say that, because one parent asked me, she's like, is it too late? My child is now 30 and I realize I need this tool. Guardianship you can get at any age. But you have to talk to your individual. If you're going to let them use, if they are going to use the internet, I shouldn't say that, but if they are going to use this tool, the computer, their iPhone, their whatever, you're going to have to talk to them about how to stay safe. I know with my daughter, we have lots of conversations. I'm not on social media at all, but her older sister is. And I left that job to her older sister and say, let me know when, the younger one posts something, and we'll talk about it, and we'll try to, understand why that was posted, and is it a good one or isn't, and then take it down. I realize things don't disappear forever, but it's just a matter of discussing things with them and trying to teach them, as Erin was saying.
Can I do a follow-up question to Gabrielle? Kathy, would you mind?
Sure.
Paul opened the session with a very clear example of how a disabled person was targeted on the internet. We did this session really because one of our regional chairs came to us and said that they had a report from one of the support coordinators that people in group homes were being targeted. He gave us an example of one case where a person was groomed online, and within a very short period of time, this person was married, legally married, and it took a while to unwind that. The other example was this person was groomed, and even though the family did not think this was possible, this person who was a bad actor on the internet was so good at directing them to take specific actions that this kid gave his social security number and his parents' social security number. In both cases, the law and local enforcement did not recognize the fact that this person was a disabled person and was under guardianship. So I'm trying to figure out, are there any protections for for people who are under guardianship, or does the law just not really care?
I would never say that the law enforcement agencies don't care.
No, I can throw in that in cases of sextortion and stuff that we were talking about before, kids are able to obtain a parental card without their parents' even knowledge over 90% of the time. So this is not just disability discussion. This is an overall discussion for everybody that we need to get better at.
But I guess what I'm asking is the fact that a person is under guardianship is not a defense. Right? You can't say, well, he shouldn't have been married in the first place because I have guardianship of this person.
Well, it's a matter of when they have guardianship, as I said, it's a decision of, they have to be found as an incapacitated adult. And guardianship isn't just for our kids, you realize. I mean, if you have an elderly person who is diagnosed with dementia and doesn't understand Alzheimer's disease or something like that, you can get guardianship over an elderly person as well. So it's a finding that they don't have the capacity to manage their finances, their medical decisions, self-care. And that is for a judge to decide. I don't do criminal law. So I can't quite say, but generally somebody going way back to my days back in law school when I had to take crim law, you needed a level of understanding of what you were doing. So that would be up to the court system to decide one way or the other. A guardianship does not prevent somebody from getting married because it's a very low level of understanding of what you're doing is to marry somebody, and it does not interfere with your right to vote because, again, that's not a very high bar to cross. So as far as the cases that you're specifically saying and what Paul said at the beginning, I would have to know the totality of the circumstances of what happened and more than likely defer to somebody who actually practices. I do want to say that individuals can file reports on behalf of somebody else with, I believe it's the IC3 or the Federal Trade Commission, and explain their relationship if they feel an individual has been scammed. I think Ron or Jim can talk more about that, though.
Gabrielle, thank you very much. That was very, very helpful. Back to you, Kathy.
Okay. Laura wrote, my daughter likes to follow animators on TikTok, Facebook, X, and Instagram. She will message them to say hi and they don't answer, and she does that repeatedly. How can I get her to understand she is harassing or bothering these people and that this behavior is seen as strange and inappropriate?
So I can take this one. First, we do have trainings on this, and sometimes I find it's helpful when someone else says the same exact thing you're saying. They just like hear it in a different way. I don't know. I used to do all the trainings, and then our program got in Bianca, who does our trainings now, and same trainings that I was doing, but it always helps to hear it from a different voice, a different perspective. So repetition, just important, just keep saying and explaining that it's harassing. How would she like it if someone she didn't know kept messaging over and over and over again? It is a part of controlling behavior. It is something that we wouldn't do in real life. You know, we wouldn't say, hey, 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 over and over again to someone without them responding. We also teach like what is proper etiquette. So, you know, emailing or responding or messaging once and then waiting 24 hours and then messaging again. If they don't respond, then unfortunately, then that's their way of saying they don't want to talk or they can't talk, and just kind of helping them through that process. That's someone, you know, they like or they want to talk to doesn't want to talk to them back. So that opens up like a whole nother discussion. There's also a lot of videos online that kind of talk about this and how it makes someone feel when it happens to them. And then in our trainings, I should say, they're also interactive. So when we do these trainings with groups, we put out case examples and we have people kind of think about different situations and how they would handle it and kind of tie it all back into the training. So just that, I mean, that's my advice, just repetition, just trying to have other people say the same things. And maybe, I know there's like a lot of TV shows as well, and that's worked for some people. A show that they really like kind of talked about it, and it kind of like, oh, that makes sense. I remember them saying this in the TV show that I like, or in this video from this TikTok user that I like. So kind of using that in a way to help them understand. I hope that helps.
We're coming up on 12. Paul, did you have any final words that you'd like to share?
No, except that this has been a great conversation, and I'm really grateful to our panelists for sharing their expertise and insights, and for the many people who have joined us today in the audience and their questions and comments. It's just been a really engaging, important conversation. And again, it's definitely one, I mean, it's clear. I think if it wasn't clear before, I think it's clear now that we really need to continue this conversation and have it in different forums and different times and places, looking at the technology that's available, the good and the bad, looking at the different, you know, measures we can take, you know, as particularly as Erin has, you know, sort of outlined. and just, you know, just keep this conversation going and continue to be vigilant and to stay on top of this conversation. Because again, this isn't a new set of issues. It's just becoming more pervasive and perhaps more dangerous. And there's no reason to believe it's going to let up anytime soon. So.
Yeah. One follow-up to that, Paul, from the Regional Family Support Planning Council's point of view, we completely agree with you. This is something that's new. When things like this, when incidences of cyber or phone targeting people with disabilities come up, there are ways to report it to DDD through, excuse me, not really DDD, the Office of Public, OPIA. What does that stand for, Paul? Office of Public Integrity and Accountability. But it's not really clear. So we are in discussions with OPIA to figure out if there is some additional training that we need to have in place so that they can track the incidences of cyber and phone scams and things like that. But to the audience, if this is a conversation that you think is valuable, if there are other issues that you think we should be focusing on, please call us and we can try to put something together.
And I know that there are a number of comments that we haven't gotten to, but you know, we're going to take a look at those and we can certainly respond. And if you have any additional questions, please reach out to the council and we'll make sure that they get answered. And I'm just going to point out in the chat, there is our quick evaluation survey with the link. So it means a lot to us if you take a few minutes to fill that survey out to let us know what your thoughts are about today's presentation, which again, you know, it was just wonderful and I think brought up some really good points. So again, thank you to all the panelists. And I think with that, we are right on time today.
Okay, take care. And we'll see the chairs in about an hour. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
everybody,
Thank you.
take care.
Thanks.